Unmute.
And we're good to go then, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So I'll start. Hello everyone, my name is Rae Johnston. I'm the Science and Technology Editor at NITV, coming to you from the unceded sovereign lands of the Gadigal, who, along with the hundreds of other nations on this continent, are the world's first technologists. I respectfully acknowledge their elders, past and present, and I extend that respect to any of my First Nations aunties and uncles, brothers and sisters who are tuning in today. And I'd like to encourage you to take a moment to acknowledge whose land you're on today and the sacrifices that have been made for us to live and work together in this beautiful country, or anywhere that you are in the world, because we are digital for this GCAP, and I am lucky enough to be speaking today with Siobhan Reddy, the studio director of Media Molecule, which is known for Little Big Planet and Tearaway, and of course, most recently, Dreams. Siobhan, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Rae, and thank you for that beautiful start. That was very beautiful.
Oh, thank you. So I do have this set up as a little fireside chat with you today, and I've really been looking forward to speaking with you specifically about this, because I think when I think of dreams, the word ambitious comes to mind, but I also think of you as a person as incredibly ambitious. You know, the idea of traveling across the world at the age of 18 to start your career is just incredible to me. But I'd love to hear from your perspective, what does ambition mean to you?
So, hold on, my puppy has just entered the room. I'm going to need to get rid of her.
Let me know if you'd like me to do that question again.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Okay, so I'll just answer. I mean, I think ambition, it's interesting because where I am sort of now, I'm not someone who's motivated generally as ambitious of like moving through job titles or you know, a lot of people sometimes ask me like, do I have ambitions to sort of you know, keep moving through the world of Sony, or you know, to keep sort of my job sort of changing. And that's not really my ambition. My ambition actually really is, I really want to be an old lady. I want to be back in Australia sitting on a beach, and I want to be reading about Media Molecule, and I want to be reading about the successes that it's had and what people have gone on to do. And that to me is like, would feel really great. Like if I think about like what ambition means, it sort of means, what am I motivated to do? And I'm really motivated with to sort of set up a studio that can keep going. I'm motivated by being a shepherd for people along their career and seeing them progress. Like that, I get such a kick out of seeing people, you know, people sort of go on to do amazing things. And I'm motivated by the fact that like I don't want to see barriers, you know. So my ambition is like is sort of very motivated by where there is an opportunity, or where there is something that might not have been done, or where traditionally people say no, like why not say yes? And that's sort of where a lot of my ambition lies. It's sort of very much in a curiosity of like, what could this be, or what could games be, or what could be? And I think I see myself, it's weird, it's like as a passenger on that kind of journey of like, that's what I'm very motivated by, sort of seeing where we can go. And that's, you know, that is kind of matched then with like, I obviously work very hard. And so it's not that I'm just this passenger that's on a sort of ambient sort of journey. It's more that, you know, I'm very motivated by working with people who are, you know, equally curious and equally have a desire to sort of really bring out new things and be unafraid to try to take games to new places. and to work with people in new ways, and just generally just tear down any barriers that we may have, creative or whatever, and just see what can happen. Like that's that probably doesn't answer exactly what ambition means, but to me it's the reasons why like, that drive me, and sort of keep me moving forward.
And do you think that it's that, you know, that curiosity, that boundary pushing that led you to, you know, on this journey to be developing something like Dreams? Because it kind of makes sense to me that someone with that sort of approach to their career in game development would end up making something like this.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if I think of, I'm really happy that that's what has ended up happening in my career, and that's part of also, the games industry and who you work with is it's very important to find that right group of people. The game industry is huge. There's lots of different types of teams. There's lots of different creative energies. There's lots of different options for people. And I'm lucky enough to have found that group of people who enjoy that same thing that I do, which is sharing creativity, sharing the fact that, like, democratizing it to a point that it means that we can all do it. I've been very enriched in my life by creative things, like whether or not it was making movies or painting or crafting, knitting, like anything I do that ends up with me having something at the end, cooking. I love it. I feel very enriched. And I think when I discovered that when I sort of almost fell into the industry, and reflected on what I loved about it in that first year, it was like all these people, it was like the energy in the room, the fact that everyone was making this thing. And so I'm really happy that I've ended up at a place in a place where what we're doing is sharing that with the world. But it's not really by accident, because they're also my friends. So they're people that I'm very like-minded with, like I share I share a sort of an overlap of interests. And I think that love of things, just love of, like, when you make something, it can be a bit wonky or it can be AAA, like, there's just that sort of when you experience something that's handmade, it's a very different feeling to experiencing something that is like factory made.
Yeah, that's a really cool way of thinking about it, actually. I'd love to hear from you about some of the different challenges and then the breakthroughs that came while creating something so innovative and different and new, also over such a long development cycle, because this game has been in the works for a very long time, right?
Yeah, it has, but it's also, we're really small, so it's long. It's a bit like slow cooking, it's long, but we had a very small team of people. And if I think about the various phases, for a long while, particularly while we were working on Tearaway, that most of the team was on Tearaway. So if we were to, when we sort of calculate all of our person months, it's sort of, it's quite a reasonable, acceptable amount of time. But it's long in terms of keeping us all motivated, and I think one of the questions that we've been asked a lot over time is, like, how do you stay motivated during that phase? And the thing is that we always were making progress. It was just a very big idea that when we started it, it sounded a lot smaller than it is. And so the vision of what we started all the way back then is what we delivered this year. Like, being able to make this tool that gave people the ability to move between the different disciplines, and be doing sound 1 minute and music and then art the next, then animation. That was the vision. It was like, I want to be able to be in a flow state and move through these different creative disciplines and remove the barriers between them. And that vision is what we've been working really hard at. So when I look at the phases through that, we were always making progress. And internally, we had this, you know, sort of almost like we're in this bubble of like, we're working on dreams. And I think some of the challenges we had was all came to do with like how the outside world understood what we were doing. And that was in a variety of different ways of, you know, like I would find sometimes that like my industry friends wouldn't know how to talk to me. They wouldn't know whether or not things were going okay or things weren't, or whether or not the stress was good stress or bad stress. And I actually found that really interesting because that had never really happened to me in my career before, where people really didn't know. And I could see when I met people that they would awkwardly be thinking, oh, do I ask when it's coming out, or do I ask, you know? And the question is like, yes, it's fine. Like, talk to people. It's, you know, it's you know, where it's it was, yeah. So there was that kind of challenge of like almost keeping everybody up. Yeah. So yeah, I think that was definitely a challenge. When we also another challenge that we had was really starting to move on from our past of being this tiny studio, you know, like the idea of dreams and the concept for dreams really, to deliver it, really eclipses the size of our studio. We're still small in comparison to, say, the other worldwide studios teams, and certainly very small to deliver on the vision for something this big. You know, like we still have that thing where one programmer owns a large swathe of things, or, you know, our head of comms owns many things. You know, everybody owns many things. And the sort of thing that we sort of realized is, well, why did we, like, yeah, we all love old MM, but we also can move on and we can grow. And some of those things, of the challenges, are like, as we were making this game, it's like figuring out, or this platform, I should say, is like, how do we make it, and which bits of our old selves do we have to let go of in order to do that, and which bits of those are we happy to let go of, and which bits of those do we really feel are important to hold on to.
Sounds like therapy.
Look, seriously, it's been I mean, it's been amazing, because I feel like, you know, on the breakthrough side, like we have learnt so much, you know, like we have done so many things with this project. We've put on a gig, put on a DreamsCon, which I think this year was the first of the in-game conferences that happened this year. We've put on an award show. We've had, you know, we've made a music video with No Osiris. We've got a commercial license that's available. We've actually made this big tool. We have this community making amazing things. And it's wild, because some of the opportunities that people come to talk to us about are exactly the thing that like teenage me would have been like, yes, like that's amazing, like that's weird and amazing and cool. And, you know, like, and then other things you're just like, wow, God, that's huge. Like people will really understand what that is. And so, you know, the breakthroughs to me are very much, you know, these, I'm really, I love how this sort of, I love how Dreams has started to, I love that the way people use it surprises us, and the way people want to use it is how we dreamt that they would use it. And so yeah, I think for me it's like the challenges have just been this thing where we started out, we thought we were making a game, and we have actually, what we've made is this incredible tool and platform. And we've really, the challenge then has been figuring out, well, how do we talk about that, and how do we express that within the sort of games industry context, where people really are talking about gameplay experiences a lot of the time. So we come at it from the left field. So where do we fit in that? And that's been a challenge. And then it's like, yeah, we announced it very early, so people have been on this journey with us, and we've sort of been probably slightly reluctant, transparent developers, you know. And yeah, so it's really been, you know, so yeah, the challenges have been, you know, that, but then the breakthroughs of things like really learning how adaptable we are, and learning how if you actually really look at, it's that classic game thing. If you really look at what you have on the screen rather than what you wish you had, you can see what you have and then where to take it and what to do next with it. And what you can see is this tool which really gives people the ability to express. And then, yeah, so it's definitely been a journey. It's an absolute career highlight. I don't think, I feel like, we've learned so much. Like Abby, Gemma and I have these conversations sometimes. And Gemma is a head of outreach and Abby's a head of comms, and will be talking about things like a commercial license or an outreach opportunity. And just so often it's like, well, I don't know, should we try that? And then it's usually like, well, what have we got to lose? Like, let's do it. Let's give it a go. Let's see where it takes us. And some of those things have been the things that have actually then generated a lot of buzz, or have generated a lot of, a particular group sort of joining in on the bandwagon. So it's been very, very interesting so far.
It sounds like the development of this game is so similar to actually being inside the game as a player as well, and creating, like just limitless opportunities and saying, hey, I feel like doing this, let's go explore this path, and really not having those barriers or boundaries. I'm really curious. You've obviously been working in game development for a long time now, and you've experienced what it's like to start from scratch, start with a kind of blank page, so to speak. So how does your experience of starting from scratch within Dreams as a player and as a creator differ? How do you jump in and start playing?
I think within Dreams, the way that I start is I just need to start, basically. So I'm a big fan of the jams, because I often just need a subject. I can overthink the beginning, of just like, and actually, interestingly, that's probably the same in real development as well, where it's like, at MM, there's never, ever, ever, ever any risk of a blank canvas, ever.
I'm the same with writing.
Really not a problem. It's, the getting started, a lot of people love, they love that. So it's more, for us with that phase, it's more about how we hone down and arrive at that vision. And for me, when I'm a creator in Dreams, I had this really interesting experience actually, where one of the things years ago when I came up with the idea for the community jams came from, I was trying to learn the sculpt tools, and I was having this issue where I kept sort of overthinking everything. And we were in a meeting, and I thought, let's just set a theme. We're going to review the tools. Let's just set a theme. I think we were reviewing the animation tools. And I said, well, we'll do an octopus's garden. Like, that will be the theme. Just so Mark, that's what he did. Mark Healy, creative director, that's what he did. He used that. And then that night I was at home, my dev kit, and I thought, I'm going to use that same theme and try and come up with something. So I did, and I spent ages trying to like come up with this like perfect octopus. And it was just it was like I just kept doing it and then deleting and then doing and then deleting. And then at one point I was just like, I have 10 minutes. I'm just going to do this octopus. And so I did.
10-minute
octopus. I just did this like broad stroke one. I was like, I'm just going to like embrace Henson, use like, make it into like a sort of Muppety octopus.
It's hard.
I did. Well, this is the thing. Like, I did it. And as soon as I let go of trying to create a perfect octopus, which is actually really hard, FYI, because they're quite complex creatures. But as soon as I let go of that and was just like, it just needs to look vaguely like an octopus and just bounce over the coral and then bounce back. And as soon as I did that, I was off. I then had such a great time, and I realized it was just that thing of, I'm not making this to win an Oscar. I'm making it to just enjoy it. I'm making it to just have a laugh. And the more pressure I was putting on myself for it to be this perfect thing, the more I was actually, you know, really getting hung up. And I think that again is another metaphor for development, is that like at the beginning of things, you have to allow yourself to dive into an idea and be the yes and rather than the no but, you know, and allow yourself to kind of give something some space. Not all ideas are good ideas, but like I think that I actually really enjoy giving ideas room, because it's been some of the wildest ideas. Like Tearaway is a great example of like wild ideas. The jam we did on all of the outputs and the Vita, the outtakes from that jam of when we recorded them are hilarious, because we just let everyone go wild, you know. And of course, all the like completely wild ideas or the things people can't do on the bus or whatever, they all fall away. But for that 1 minute, that person has had that moment to go, I had this crazy idea and I just wanted to try it and I just wanted to make you all laugh. And, you know, when you're at the beginning of anything, that is actually can be a very good tonic of just like how we will see different ideas, because it can be very, you know, I think people start in very different places. Some people are very fearful at the start, and some people are very bold, and some people are mediators, and some people, you know, and I think that, so yeah, I think that for me, it's about trying to relax into the process, to not miss out on the magic that process that start can provide. It's you only get to start really once, you know, so it's a very interesting phase. So yeah.
Do you think about how you want to feel when you're playing and creating? Because
Yeah.
obviously you think about how you want other players to feel when they're in dreams. Do you think about that for yourself as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think about, yeah, definitely. I think of mood, an atmosphere, definitely how people feel. Yes, that's like the major thing you want to do. And even when I'm making something, puppy. She's like, why can't I come in? She usually fits in with me this time of the day.
Mine's at the door with a steak, so.
That was a good idea. I think she's just really restless today, but yeah, so yeah, I do. I think about that atmosphere, and I have always been a lover of the theatre, for how theatre and dance can immediately, when you walk into those spaces, make you they have to transport you immediately. And, you know, you go from being in like a busy auditorium to actually being in a theatre space, and there's all these things that happen, you know, in order to kind of get the mood going, the lights going down and everyone having to stop speaking and the curtains. And I think that all these things have sort of really much inspired me of thinking, I think games have to have that same sort of feeling of like, I'm bringing you in, and, you know, I think the success for us is when somebody feels something from what we've made.
So Dreams is obviously being used as a tool with people with no experience in making games, like myself. You know, I've written a lot about games, spoken to a lot of game developers, you know, played a lot of games, but never actually made anything, and I can jump in and make something. But where do you see the value lies for developers who already have experience?
I mean, we've got such a broad base of people in the community, and we have what I've loved seeing this idea of the two ends. So at one end there is like pros, and I love seeing what professional devs are doing with Dreams, because, you know, a lot of them are very practiced, and they, you know, have kind of honed their craft. They know what they want to do. They make amazing things, and they're advocates within their studios and everywhere for people to use Dreams, and that is a very cool thing. And on the other end of that, you have the hobbyist creators who, or lapsed creators, you know, people who may have been creative. I'm definitely one of these people, even though I make games every day. I mean, my job isn't to sit and make artwork or design levels. It's something very different. But very much when I was younger, as a teenager, I was all about creating things. So Dreams actually for me became this thing where it actually, as an adult, has allowed me to make things again, and in doing that has actually really, like I sort of referred to it once as like tickled my brain. You know, it's like, oh, remember this, like, you know, and again, like, even though my entire career is kind of being in creative industries, it's very interesting to sort of then be like, oh, okay, even being around it and playing games and giving feedback and getting involved, that's not the same as sitting and making something on my own, or really trying to think like, how would I solve this creative problem? Or so I've really enjoyed it from that, and I've loved seeing that there's quite a lot of people in the community who come from that side as well, where they're people who are professionals, and as a grown-up, like that ability or the sort of you know, taking the time out to create something that doesn't necessarily have a purpose beyond a laugh is not something that really people expect grown-ups to do. And I think I think that's such a sad thing. Like, well, of course we should be doing that. It's like playing in the sandpit is still fun. Like, that's why I think people love. I love playing with my nieces and nephews because they allow me to be a kid again.
It's an excuse.
And I like doing those things. Yeah, exactly. I still enjoy
we
that.
need an excuse to enjoy ourselves for no reason that isn't attached to work in any way. Why is that? Why are we like this?
I know, and that's the thing that I'm saying is, like, I love that Dreams has given that has allowed people to, you know, it has allowed that to happen for people. And I've loved seeing the hobbyists. So the full spectrum to me is very interesting. And I'd love, you know, Little Big Planet did this, where you saw people join the community and then go on to become professional devs. And we've already seen that in Dreams. We've already seen people who have started, learned how to make games and have already got jobs. And I love that, you know, like I think, you know, we're always really happy when we just help people move through, you know, that's just such a, great story. And it, you know, when professional devs use the game and give us feedback, that's obviously incredibly validating, because people give us such great, interesting feedback of, you know, what they've made and what they love doing. And so yeah, I think I love finding all the subculture groups in there of, like, you know, and there's like people who are like they're like the grannies and grandchildren gang, and that is a great, I mean, it's not a huge gang, but I don't even know if I'd call it a gang, but I've seen it on a few profiles, and I just think that's amazing. Like, that's so cool. Like, you know, we used to think in Little Big Planet times about the parent and child experience, but to be able to think about the grandparent and child experience of them sitting and making stuff together or playing stuff together, or both, is just like, that's really neat. I love that.
What sort of things are the grannies and grandkids gang making?
Well, I think these are games largely directed by the little children, so they are quite wild. And that's the other thing, like, kids make wild stuff.
They do.
Like, and it was like, and then they went over there and it became a princess, and then it went and did this and and you're just like, yeah. So they just, you know, I think, you know, I love that. The ones that I've seen there, they're just, you know, it's a bit like when I made a game with my niece at Christmas time, and she was basically telling me what to do, and it was like this, you know, a lot of cats, a cave, a princess, I can't remember what else, but I just remember we had a lot of cats. It was a very cat intense area to find all the cats in the Dreamverse. It was very funny.
Incredible. So I want to know a little bit about what your hopes for the future of independent game development, and also for Australian developers in general are. I know it's a big question, but, you know, I'm sure that you've seen some changes in your time, some for the better, some for the worse. But how do you see the future, and what do you hope it looks like?
It's such an interesting question, because I think, you know, this phase we've all been in this year has been really, I think, very interesting, and it's everything. It's positive, it's negative, it's banal, it's interesting, it's all of those things all wrapped up into one. But it's unique, and I think we have to see get something out of it. My sort of own reflections of like games and what we do and the various pressures that we are all under is it's sort of, when I was thinking about like the hopes, I hope everybody is happy and successful, obviously. Like, I want people, if this is the career that people have chosen, it's because they have a passion for it and they want to succeed and they want to do well and they want to see their ideas come to fruition. And I very much hope for them that happens. I also hope that that can be done in a healthy way. I hope that our industry keeps becoming more professional. I think that at the moment, we're at this mad time where, like, we can make games in more ways than ever before. There's more content than ever before. So as a professional games developer, it's a hard time. I think that to be honest, whatever, if you're quadruple A or starting out, like, it's basically there's I think everybody everywhere in the industry sort of faces that challenge of how to be noticed and how to make their game succeed and how to basically how to be noticed. And I'm always very I've been very privileged all throughout my career. I've worked in great places, I've had good successes, and I think this year's been this really interesting year of being at home and really being able to take in what's going on with everybody and sort of feeling like, I think I want everybody to succeed. I want everyone to look out for each other. I want the industry to keep becoming more professional. I want us to root out the things that are not good about it. And those things are actually, there are quite a few of them, of just like some of the work practices we have, sort of the consistent issues of harassment being brought up. And I think it's really important that as we all progress, that it becomes a healthier, more professional industry. And that is something that leaders have to do in my view. I think it's really important that a studio's success is sort of judged on not just whether or not the game was really successful, but what the journey was to arrive at that. And ultimately that's not always how you're judged, because that's not, but that is really important to me. And I think the thing my hopes for everyone there is I haven't been at GCAP for a while, and I haven't got to go to PAX for a while, so I haven't got to feel the Aussie industry for a while. The last time I did it felt amazing, and it felt very supportive, and it felt very, and I hope that is still the case. I hope there is that feeling, and I hope that, I think things like the point I was making about people not always knowing how to ask me, like, what's going on with Dreams, or what's, or is it a game, or whatever, when you're making something weird, and people not really knowing, I kind of encourage people to just not be afraid to talk to people, and, I think that in changes or in times when people are doing big ideas or weird ideas or just, maybe even not weird ideas, just anything, and you don't really, and you can see that, I think that, keeping that open discussion with people is really, really important. So yeah, I just wish everybody the best, really. I hope that lockdown is treating everybody. I know Melbourne's really going through it right now, and I hope that eases soon. Over here in the UK, things are probably, I just should say no comment. It's pretty tricky. I hope everyone's doing really well, and I think it's been fantastic to just see the continued success that the Australian industry is having. And again, I can't wait to be that old lady sat on a beach at home reading about everybody's successes and and sort of just hearing about how the industry is thriving. That's an exciting prospect.
It sounds like to get to that place that you hope for the future, we need a lot of openness and transparency and collaboration. Do you think that that's the best path forward for everyone, to just be, you know, helping each other out?
Yeah, I think there's obviously, I very much believe that we should be helping each other out, and that openness and discussion. Like, what I loved when I witnessed the Aussie industry, and I was in the arcade. I know that this was ages ago, and it's probably so long ago. People are like, "What? What are you talking about?"
No,
But when I was there,
they still know.
what I loved was, was that openness, and what I loved was I really enjoyed that, and I've always liked that. Like, Guildford, where I am, there's a lot of game developers, and we all used to have spent a lot of time together in the past, or worked together, and I really enjoy that. I think that the industry is, we ask a lot of people. I guess my sort of ultimate point is, I've talked in the past about how it's really important that, like, the best work has some bit of you in it, has some personal thing. It's like the best songs, best art, best stories, they'll come from somewhere personal. And then that personal stuff, that there's like a soul tax you pay to provide that
Oh yeah.
personal work, and in it, and that was, I was thinking that, like, 10 years ago, when it was where the industry wasn't quite as, it was a bit different then. It was a bit easier. I don't even know if easier is the right word. It's just a bit different. And now it's like, I think that that's just, it's grown a lot, and that people are still having to, there's more, when I see so many, there's this wonderful indie developers. I love seeing everybody put their games out there. I love it. I love, I think it's always just such a feat that we all just manage to finish these things. But we ask a lot of people, we ask them to give this personal work. And then, it can be rough. Like, the internet can be rough, or like the launch might not go exactly to plan, or people might take issue with something, or you might take longer, or it might not be what you want, or you might debate with your co-workers, or like, there's all these things. And I think that the reason sort of I say the professional side is, like, yeah, I think we need all the openness and we need all of these things, but we also need to know that it's a business, and that, like, it's tough, and that therefore the sort of professional point is we have to find ways to safeguard people a little, so that that soul tax is not too severe, or that when you begin it, you know what you're getting yourself in for. I think that I've really enjoyed, there's so many great networks out there where I think people can provide that kind of support to each other, and this happens. So it's not something that doesn't happen. You can see it sort of happening all over the place. I think it's just, I just sort of look and think, wow, we ask a lot of people. We ask people to work so hard. We are, all of these various things. On the other hand of that, we have to make sure that we're professional, and then as developers, be there for each other when we need to just have that big vent about what's going on, because it's like, ultimately it's just video games, like, that's a big thing that's really important to remember. Like, it can be so easy to just get so immersed, like, I'll sometimes at the moment, I'll be here in my room, and I'll be like in my work day, and like, completely immersed in a problem, and I'll go out to have lunch with Barry in the kitchen, and I'm just like, the other day I said to him, I am here, but I'm not here. I'm not here. I'm here. I'm not here. I'm just not here. He was like, I know you're not here. He was like, you're not, he was basically sort of saying, this is not new. You're just, and we do a lot of this work, like, at the cost of other things. And I think it's like, we've got to remember, we are just making video games, and they do touch people, and they are important, and it can be very lucrative for us, and but it's really important to remember we are making entertainment, and life and our families and what's going on around us is also very important.
Yeah, making a game can be such a personal experience, and you're throwing yourself so wholeheartedly into something that almost becomes part of your identity, and its success or failure somehow helps determine your self-worth or value.
Oh, yeah.
And how do you stop that from being a thing that's pervasive inside your mind? How do you create that separation between, this game as, something that you have made that exists but isn't you, and you're still okay if it's not?
That's a really, really insightful question. I'm pretty good at compartmentalizing, which may not be healthy, but I am pretty good at
that. Whatever works.
I am also very resilient, but it is very difficult. And I think that as a team, this is what teams feel, and you can see this played out a lot where, when something is going wrong for a game or hard for a game, it's not one person that feels it. It is a whole team who feels it, whether or not that's 3 people or 200 people. Because another thing that we sort of do is we're very much about making it feel like this big thing. We want people to feel involved, and we want people to give their heart and soul. And we want it to feel like this great journey to make this thing. And sometimes when I reflect upon that, I think, how do we need to provide ways for people to be able to detach themselves from it. I need ways to detach myself from it. I struggle with that. I'd say, I was talking with someone a while back about that overlap of work and identity. And yeah, I'm completely aligned with my that's how I feel, and so I wouldn't be able to give good advice on how to I need advice on how to, to untangle them, really.
So it's fair to say this is an issue that everyone deals with then.
Yeah, I think then it is just that taking time out. And that's why I think for me, actually, this lockdown COVID has actually been very interesting and useful to making some headway towards that. I feel like my life has flipped. I still work just as much. I work really hard. I think in the everybody always wants to be productive, and so there's a lot of really good work going on, and I'm doing a lot of work. But I'm at home, and I'm with Barry, and I'm with our dogs, and I'm in my house, and we have Skype, we're speaking to both of our families a lot more, and we're both not from England, so we're both, Barry's Irish, and so so there's been a very interesting thing where I feel like I have that sort of stepping away enforced, because of what's happening, has actually provided me with probably some much needed perspective, and has allowed me to be more resilient, therefore, because I've not been so in the thick of everything, and feeling like I have to be in the studio to feel like things are moving. And I'm so proud of everyone at because I think we're working even better than when we do in the studio, which is quite amazing. So it's definitely I think being able to practice that, being able to step away and go into the trees and just get out of get out of your head, is just really that's what helps me. Anytime I'm it's all just becoming too much, I just have to go into the woods, basically, and that's sort of what helps me out. That's just really important. And I think finding that way of being able to just sort of say, I haven't got, I don't know where I am on this journey, but just to say, it is a job. It's just a job. It's just a job. It's just a job. I want to be excellent at my job. I want to do a really good job. Just saying it's just a job doesn't make it somehow mean that I don't care about it. It just helps me go, it's not everything about me. And so I can have other things as well. I can be other things as well as Siobhan, studio director at Media Molecule. And I think, you know, I've worked so hard over the last sort of 22 years that there's been definitely some times where that is just all I have been. That's it. I'm not able to be anything else. And I've heard many people talk about the dangers of that. And I haven't actually, you know, I have to be honest, like, I think I'm surrounded by great people who always help pull me out when I am getting a bit stressed. So yeah, but I think it's a really important thing for us to all know. It's like, it is just a job. It's one we love. It's one we are passionate about. It's one that we want to all excel in. And yeah, it is fantastic. And we're so lucky we get to like play in our imaginations all day. Like, how cool is that? But it does get a bit much sometimes, and when it does, just go hang out in the trees and everything will be fine.
You spoke a bit there about resilience, and you know, I think people think of resilience as, you know, something that you either have or you haven't, but I like to think of it as more of a skill that you can practice and, you know, learn how to do better over time. And I'm wondering what lessons you've learned in resilience from your years with Media Molecule and throughout your career that people might be able to apply to the current situation that we're finding ourselves all in.
Yeah, I mean, I think with that, do you mean with COVID?
I do. I was avoiding saying it, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, I think with that, it will pass. Like all things, it will pass, and we have to find so I mean, we're about to go into winter here, and so it's autumn now, and so our first 6 months have been all through summer. And I've actually been at home. We've all been at home. Sony sent us home in mid-March, so we've been at home since then. And I've got an autoimmune disease, so I've been pretty much shielding, not doing very much. So I've kind of been at my house for 6 months. And we're about to go into winter, and that is a new thing. So I've been thinking about what are the coping mechanisms for winter? It's darker, and they have to be things that are achievable. So, you know, they are things like, definitely, you know, speaking to my family is really important. And I think because they're so far away, and we've, you know, I love them so much, like the fact that I haven't lost seeing them, because I don't see them anyway. So the fact that we now speak to each other as a family every Sunday is a win. That's amazing. So I mean, being able to find things, yeah, it's brilliant. It's like all 5 kids and my mum and dad, and it's just awesome. We've never done that. And so I think it's finding some of those things that just help, things you would never have done that actually now there is a reason to do. But then it's things like really leaning into like the romance of winter. Like, okay, what is cool about winter? Like, winter is like fires, and it's cozy, and it's, you know, nice jumpers, and, you know, I've actually bought like a proper raincoat I've lived over here for so long, and I've never actually had a waterproof raincoat. I've had like water resist, you know, I've had various levels of water-ish, proof-ish, but not a proper raincoat. So I've bought a proper raincoat. I've got my dogs. I'm happy. They're so happy outside in the wet. I think we have to think about it. Like, resilience to me is a bit about facing up to what's actually ahead of you, and then not sort of saying, okay, I've seen it and I'm just going to be fine. It is saying, I actually have to do some things to prepare for this. I have to, you know, figure out like how I'm, you know, what is going to help me get through, and allow yourself to indulge that, you know, like indulge the thing that you need to help you get through it. Don't feel guilty about, you know, I think it's also that, yeah, I think for me, it's like, I was looking yesterday, I'd found this website called Wool and the Gang, and you can buy these kits where you can make a jumper.
I get my knitting stuff from them as well sometimes.
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, I can ask you about it afterwards.
I use their big wool. It's great for scarves.
Amazing. Because yeah, so I saw that and I was like, I want to make a jumper. I've never made a jumper. I've actually never successfully finished a scarf. So it's a big ask. But I was like, just come on, Siobhan, like, don't let go of your old knitting failures. Look forward to this beautiful stripy jumper that you are going to make.
I
And I
am
may
so
make
here
it,
for this. I'm so excited for you.
and I may make it or I may not make it. But it's like, I think for me, it really is just that, knowing that when you're entering into a phase that is going to be difficult, have your eyes wide open and just think about the things that can help along the way. I mean, I'm a big believer in, like, I'm a producer, so like I make lists. I think about, like, what am I going to feel like, I think, in a week's time? What will I need when I've got like super terrible period pain and it's really, really dark and I actually hate everybody and everything? Like, what am I going to need then? Probably going to need some Smith salt and vinegar chips, which
Ooh.
the last time I ordered them took 2 months to arrive, so better get ordering.
Oh no.
But it's stuff like that to me, which is like, what are the home, with COVID, it's like home comforts, family, and then activities that I would never have been able to do, that I have been able to do. And not all of it's great, because obviously there's so much terrible stuff going on that, like, you have to, taking in the news is very intense. I'm obviously very lucky. I'm very, very privileged, but I think it is also an important time to reflect on what's going on around us. And it's also an important time, I think, to have seen that to sort of figure out how to support the groups that we feel need support. And we've got a bit more time to be able to do that as well, like not commuting, so we can be, instead of in the commute time, be looking for things like that, and that are a bit more enriching. So I've also really enjoyed, or I've maybe enjoyed's the wrong word, but I think for me it's about, COVID has allowed me to feel a bit more like me, because I'm not I'm at home, and I want to be able to take in what's going on around me and feel more of a person of the world that is able to participate in hearing what's happening. So yeah, I think it's a very interesting time. I think it's going to be, I think obviously we'll all come out of it different people. Maybe a little bit different, maybe a big bit different, but I think that you can't go through this and not come out of it somehow having adjusted some behavior, I think.
Yeah. Do you think that focus on yourself and keeping yourself well during a time like this has changed your work?
Maybe. I mean, I think yeah, I mean, I guess in a way it's just, I mean, it's obviously like, everything's changed because we're all working from home and we're all having to find new behavior patterns. And I'd use that like slow cooking analogy again, like where it's basically, I feel a little bit like that. Conversations are a bit slower. Sometimes, communication, the sort of flow of it is very different. It's very fast, but also not quite. The ripples to get things out are can take a bit longer. So it's definitely made me, there's been moments where I feel like I have almost had to sort of really just watch, like kind of a person standing in the middle of a roundabout watching everything going on at and thinking, okay, where's and just really getting a measure of what this new flow feels like, what's working and what's not working. I felt like that maybe about a month ago, where I was like, and at the early stages of that, I was like, oh, I feel like a person in the middle of the roundabout. And then at the end, I was like, oh no, that's fine. Like I figured out why I was in the middle of the roundabout. It was so that I could understand what was happening, and now the flow we have, and I could adjust the flows as we needed them to be adjusted. It's like being a traffic manager, basically, sometimes my job, and that is and so that is so that's definitely been very interesting. We're working at such a rapid pace. Like, I think that at Media Molecule, people are so productive. It's a really energetic, brilliant phase, and I can see everybody's like dived into that, because at the same time as all of these things I'm saying of like self-care and finding the beauty in the moment, and etc., which I all believe, there's still something really, really lovely about just coming in. Like, I love that my dogs are in the room and I can just sit at my computer and I just do a full day's work and I get so much done, and I'm chatting to everybody. I do not feel lonely at all. I'm chatting. And we're just getting a lot done. So there is a focus, but when I'm done for the day, I'm more done for the day than I was before. That's probably the difference, because my day is now completely intense. There's not really any of that time we would have had before where you'd be like, oh, I'm just going to go make a cup of tea, and then you'd end up having like a, like a big chat, which would be largely about work, but it would be a big chat, and I miss some of that randomness, but at the same time, I'd say we are more focused than we have, it's a very focused and productive time for us.
Wonderful. Well, I won't take up any much more of your time, Siobhan. Thank you so much for chatting with me. It's been so lovely to catch up, and yeah, thanks for joining my little fireside chat.
Well, thank you. That was a total pleasure. As always, it's great to talk to you. I'm a huge admirer of your work, so it's been a real lovely pleasure to actually be able to spend some time with you. And one day I hope to do one of those bushwalks with you. That is my dream for when I'm at home, is to be able
to please, when you can come back, when we can be in the same place in the world, let's head out into the woods together, head out into the trees.
Yeah.